Salutations from space and aloha from Earth, friends. This is Gemini Brett. Good to see you. Top of the morning to you. Right. Before the shower. My friend Maurice Fernandez says this about Neptune. And he also says this about the 12th house and Pisces, where he relates the three. He's a wonderful book about Neptune. That's kind of savage, like of the wild, unpredictable, out of control. So at least I guess my hair and beard can play that game today. When Neptune stationed retrograde a couple nights ago, I caused like a flood in the kitchen and totally was like oblivious to it. It's pretty interesting. Like I started filling the Berkey and then just went and like got distracted and awoke to the astonished reaction of my partner, who was like, "You left the water on." And I didn't think it was that bad, but the next morning it was like a pretty big flood, and I sadly ruined like this old painting of mine. Anyway, so that felt pretty Neptune, you know. And actually, since Neptune station retrograde, we haven't seen the moon. The fog, like San Francisco fog, has rolled all the way over here to the northeast bay in Richmond, California, which I haven't really experienced so much yet, like for little periods of time, but now we've just been under the blanket. It's exceptional right now. So this all feels very Neptune. I have been this month the lunation guide for Astrology Hub's Inner Circle. It's a wonderful thing. They bring a guest astrologer in every month to do a new moon and a full moon forecast and to teach a master class. And my master class this month is on AstroMaps and AstroLocality. I almost changed because it's tricky right now since we can't travel and whatnot. Yeah. But we can travel without moving. And that's something I'm very interested in encouraging and finding ways in my own practice to even like face the direction of a destination and send myself there or tune into the music of a place, this kind of thing. So maybe that's a bit Neptunian too. All right, well, speaking of Neptune, here's the plan today. And I really have no idea where it's going to go. Just so you know, I don't know if my hypothesis will be confirmed. And I think a better word than hypothesis, which would be maybe too scientific, maybe too Saturnian, or even Uranian. For Neptune, the better word would be belief. My belief is that when we look to the discovery of Neptune astrologically, and compare that happening to the happenings of the discoverers and many people who had seen Neptune, then we're going to find some interesting astrological correlations and synastry charts and relocated charts. And I don't want to take 1,000 hours this morning, but maybe in some AstroMaps. So would we expect to see, like the Neptune line of Neptune's discoverer pointing to the Berlin Observatory where Neptune was discovered? I mean, I'm not going to say I expect that. That'd be amazing. I expect to see Mercury lines. I expect to see, well, I would not be surprised to see like a Jupiter line since this was expansive. Uranus lines, it was revolutionary. Maybe Saturn lines because it changed the structure of the thing. Moon lines because it's massively dreaming and spiritual. Something just to say about Neptune's discovery, right? Let's rewind the clock. I mean, since forever, Saturn was the edge of the solar system because Father Time is the last visible light, the slowest moving planetas, right? Which means wanderers, right? Because like Moon and Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn are seen to wander through the constellations and therefore also the signs of the zodiac, yeah? Planetas. In 1781, after telescopes had kind of become a fad and comet hunting was a thing to be doing with your gigantic backyard telescope if you were rich enough to have one. William Herschel and his sister Caroline discovered a new comet, and they announced it, but when it was tracked by the community, what was found was that was no comet at all, but rather this was a new planet, Uranus. It took a long time for that name to land for Uranus. Do you know that? I mean, William Herschel suggested George because he knew King George would pay the bills if he did. And that strategy worked, by the way. He became the royal astronomer on the pay. Fortunately, that name didn't stick. I mean, you can imagine in 1781, for example, how the American astronomers were feeling about the naming of the new planet after the king that they were currently revolting against, for example. Anyway, so interestingly, actually, Neptune as a name was suggested for Uranus, and that just didn't land. Uranus is just not Neptunian, friends. It was Bode, I think, or Bode of the famous Bode's Law, who suggested Uranus be the name for Neptune. And then the discovery of uranium, or at least the radioactive property of uranium, brought that name Uranus to uranium later. You may know this, that uranium to become plutonium, right, which sadly is like weapons grade atomic material, has to move through kind of a hidden invisible stage called Neptunian. And interestingly, in Bode's law, which predicts the orbital distance of planets from the sun, it predicts where Uranus should be and Pluto, but not Neptune. That's how invisible Neptune is. So anyway, with Uranus's discovery, crazy revolutions were happening. The American Revolution, the French Revolution was building, the Industrial Revolution, the Technological Revolution, this astronomical revolution, thanks to telescopes, etc. We, by the way, had already had some observations of Uranus by astronomers like way back in the day, because you can see Uranus about once a year, and it depends on the year. It depends on the phase of the moon at the time when the sun is opposite Uranus in our charts, or this means the middle of Uranus retrograde cycle when Earth is closest to Uranus and Uranus is at the top of the sky, top-ish of the sky in the middle of the night. Once a year, Uranus can be seen with the naked eye for like 3 to 5 days. Sometimes not at all, depending on moon phase. And so ancient astronomers had recorded Uranus, right? They just didn't know it was a planet. So it is a tremendous gift for astronomers because we were able to, calculate the ephemerides, the planetary tables, the positional tables for Uranus much faster than we would have through observation alone, because of ancient naked eye astronomy with that planet, which is an amazing thing. Though Uranus can indeed be seen with the naked eye a few days a year, it really is about breaking us out of the limit of our senses, right? This is one of the great gifts of Uranus. This is why I think Uranus is associated with astrology, because like the truth that Uranus broke us out of the limits of our senses, which end with Saturn, the last fully visible planet, astrology does this. If we do astrology as a way in rather than a way out, we get to see more about us, some of the hidden things, yeah? But Neptune's much more of a hidden thing kind of planet, isn't it? So Uranus, massively revolutionary. I mean, it's amazing to me that these planets do seem to carry the energetic of the zeitgeist of the time in which they were discovered. And when I say these planets, I mean the planets that were discovered. I mean, who knows who first saw Saturn? Okay, so to me, it's likely that the discovery of Uranus had to wait for the breakthrough of the heliocentric cosmology, thanks in modern times to Copernicus, and in many regards to the work of Galileo's confirmation. You probably know Copernicus waited to like his deathbed to publish, because that could get you drawn and quartered at the very least. And Galileo was not burned at the stake, but he was subject to house arrest for his remaining days once he was inquisitioned in Rome, because he was showing evidence, mostly through his telescope observations, that completely confirmed the heliocentric or sun-centered cosmology. And at the time, that was heresy. Well, Galileo wouldn't have known this, but Galileo has his sun square Uranus, Pisces sun squares Sagittarius Uranus in his nativity, like partile, like same degrees, right? Really stressed. There's like a bit of a heretical, and especially heretical in the way of seeking versus believing, you know, I mean, love it. And by the way, when Galileo reported for the Inquisition, Saturn was transiting his Uranus and squaring his Pisces sun. Astrology is just so real, which is why I believe we will find some interesting synastry in the charts of Neptune's discovery and those of other folks who had seen Neptune or were responsible for Neptune's modern discovery. Galileo saw Neptune. Galileo saw Neptune, recorded Neptune in the year 1613. I didn't know it was a planet, right? So Uranus discovery, 1781, breakthrough, revolution, shocking. Less shocking, I think, if we hadn't already had the heliocentric revolution. In fact, I really don't feel that our consciousness would have been ready to break out of the mold of this last sphere as Saturn until we kind of shifted what's at the center. But Neptune's discovery was a different story. You know, Uranus's discovery, as true to the energetic, you know, of Uranus as a planet, was completely accidental, right? These cats were comet hunting and they found one, but it wasn't a comet. You know, so you're like, oh my gosh, there's a new planet, right? And old worlds, old structures were just shattered, right? That's Uranus. That's how Uranus breakthrough is opposite to Saturn structures and traditions, right? How is Neptune opposite to Saturn? Well, Saturn is separation, forms, dryness. You are you, I am me. Saturn is the bones, but also the skin, which is what separates me from the experience of being everything else in the world, you know? Neptune's about that, right? Neptune's about that boundarylessness. So Saturn boundary, Neptune boundarylessness. And you see this in the way that Neptune was discovered, actually, right? So this was 1846. And based on our observations of Uranus and trying to come to terms with why Uranus was not behaving exactly as predicted, literally based upon ancient astronomers' observations. So maybe they just got it wrong or wrote the wrong day or night. And, you know, the current, at the time, tracking of this newly discovered planet Uranus, which, you know, folks trusted because there was a lot of people looking. Something was off. Something, it was theorized later, and it's true, something out there beyond Uranus was pulling on Uranus, and this was Neptune. And I love that, right? Because it's a reminder that we all have pull on one another, right? We are all connected, bro. Yeah? And, you know, that's like Neptune mantra. And so Neptune was mathematically calculated. Now, we tend to think of mathematics as very structured, you know, mechanistic. Sadly, people use this term Newtonian, though Newton was like way too much of a mystic to be considered Newtonian himself, right? And there is a quantity of mathematics where 1 + 1 = 2, and there's a quality of mathematics. You can't add oneness and oneness. Neptune might be more on the quality of maths kind of thing, and so maybe this idea of Neptune's discovery through the truth that we're all connected. If you have moved into higher levels of the mathematical study, like I think as early as like advanced calculus or calculus itself, but something like advanced calculus, it gets very surreal and abstract, and it's up here for me. There's like a visionary quality that's necessary for it. So, and that would be more of like Neptune math for me. But mathematics is, you know, we say often it's a universal language. And so is the language of archetype and dreams. So there's an interesting for me, and I think that's a stretch and would completely not work for others because Sat mathematics can feel so Saturnian, and that Neptune's about just erasing that chalkboard. But I think math, when you get to a certain place with it, it's definitely an erasing of the chalkboard. Anyway, for Neptune, maybe more quantum science. You really can't know. If you know a particle's position, you can't know its speed and vice versa, and it can be two places at once. And I mean, look, a lot of that stuff was going down around this time of the discovery of Neptune, 1846. Film was coming online, film. I mean, just tune into the major media if you want to find proof that film offers opportunity for collective mind control in ways that nothing else previously has. Maybe more of a Uranian statement, but no, let's honor that Neptune is this unity and beauty and spirit and oneness, and dream and archetypal vision, but also just delusion, confusion, and fog, and purposeful delusion, which I think is a really important thing for us all to be looking at right now. I digress. Let's get into the charts before I get myself into trouble. So Astro Data Bank, an amazing place, right? What did I do? I searched Astro Data Bank discovery of Neptune, and right there we get to astro.com, who has integrated the Astro Data Bank, which was started by Louis Rodin, right? The founder of Astro Data Bank, who basically went around just collecting birth info from everyone. Thanks so much. And to the people who are contributing to this effort, what a gift for us. When did internet hit the scene, really? It's when Uranus technology revolutions and Neptune web and connections came together in the early 1990s in the sign of Capricorn, where of course we have a lot of attention today. That's where interconnection of technology, that's the World Wide Web, that's when that broke through, right? What a gift that we can jump on this thing, which of course our technology and our webs and our feeling of connection, even though we're being forced to be separated right now. What a gift that we can connect in this way and that we can so easily access like all of the information ever, except 80% of it, which is currently being censored. Okay, pardon me. So let's look to this discovery chart now. The Rodin rating of B, not so solid, okay? Timed historic source. The AA rating, which, it's suggested we stick with AA ratings when we do astrological research, is like from a birth certificate. Now, there's a lot to be argued about. When is a birth? What is a birth certificate birth? When do they record it? Why do they record it? There's actually different rules if you're born in different places, So it's always said that we should rectify our charts regardless of if we have a birth certificate time or not. And I don't know, like this, I guess Neptune was said to be discovered shortly before midnight. So let's read about that. eStar website newsletter, Jocelyn Hill's The Discovery of the Outer Planets. Ooh, I'd love to read that. Yorkstrand, The Neptune File by Tom Standage, page 120. Shortly before midnight, after checking a few stars in this way, Galileo described a faint star in a particular position, and data tests found that there were no corresponding star in the catalog. That star, he declared, is not on the map. And why are they excited? Because these mathematical models of something out there is pulling on Uranus predicted where Neptune would be within, look, 1 degree, right? So now Neptune also discovered with a telescope, yeah? But we knew where to point it because of this. Okay, so Wikipedia gives Neptune was discovered just after midnight. So we have shortly before midnight And then we have just after midnight, and less than an hour of searching and less than 1 degree from the position had predicted. A Neptune discovery chronology. Okay, so this is a challenging thing because, as I said earlier, I'm teaching astrolocality and astromapping techniques and philosophies for AstroHub right now, which is just an honor and one of my great passions, right? This is this chart that's suggested. This is actually the one that's in the software AstroGold. And it confirms too, so 12 and 15 seconds, where was that on? Yeah, that's what they're using here at astro.com, Astro Data Bank as well. So the sun just in, it's equinox time, September 24th of that year. We've got a Scorpio moon and the last degree of Cancer rising. So you're right. So this is tricky, right? Because if we change this by minutes, we're going to find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes later, Leo began to rise. And, Hellenistically, all the houses just shifted by 1. I'm thinking whole signs when I say that. The sun, which is now the ruler of the ascendant, and now it's in the 3rd, right? Whereas when Cancer was rising, we're talking moon, and moon and Scorpio is in the whole sign 5th, right? La la la. I mean, it's interesting to see kind of the detective Scorpio moon as the steersman of this hour marker, Cancer, of this oiox, of this rudder. Anyway, so the sun is at the IC, the middle of the night. We're going to see that Berlin on this map, therefore, is very close to the sun at the IC line, right? That's what this line is about. This is where a planet, in this case the sun, in this case Mars, in this case Mercury, these vertical dash lines in AstroGold software are representing the sun's anti-culmination. That's the sun at the IC on the chart, right? So we bring in some cities here. We're going to find Berlin there. Now, and this is an important thing to know about astrocartography lines. If you are east or right of a line, that places the planet in the cadent house. So the cadent house, of course, around the IC is the 3rd. We're going to see Sun, Mars, and Mercury all in the 3rd house of this discovery chart, where we will find Chiron in the 4th house. Okay? Uranus at the midheaven, so we will see Uranus in the 10th house, which sounds like a great thing for a discovery. So let's just see that on the chart first. Mercury, pretty closer to the 2nd, but Mercury, Mars, Sun in the 3rd, Chiron in the 4th, Uranus, because we are west of the line, it's angular, Uranus in the 10th house. So Uranus in the 10th, Chiron in the 4th, Mercury, Mars, and Sun in the 3rd. All right? So that's the kind of number 1 rule of an astrocartography map astronomically. All right. So let's learn a little bit more about this Neptune discovery history. Let's come down here. Less than an hour of searching and less than 1 degree from the position Leverrier had predicted. Okay, so who is this Leverrier guy, right? So fortunately we see him, Urbain Leverrier, born March 11th, 1811. And I haven't put his chart in yet. It's nice to see an AA roading because all these other cats on the list, including Galileo, though there is a time I like for Galileo, these other cats all saw Neptune in the sky. Lalande in 1795. John Herschel, who's William Herschel's son, in 1830. Gottfried in 1812. Galileo way back in 1613. Right? All recorded observations of Neptune. Had no idea it was a planet. Though a couple of these happened after the discovery of Uranus. In fact, right, it was John Herschel's father who's credited as the modern discoverer of Uranus. That's cool. Anyway, so it's nice to know that we have a birth certificate, birth record in hand for Urbain Leverrier, born in, is that Saint Lo, I guess? pardon me, I have no French. France, March 11th, 1811 at 10 a.m. So let's cast that chart. Here's John Herschel, but John Herschel has like an X rating. So let's do new chart and we'll get Urbain Lever 3/11, 1811, 10 a.m. There we go. Do you like my staring at the text face? That's always a good one. All right, so let's see about this guy. Now, let's read about him a bit too. French scientist and astronomer, student of celestial mechanics from 1837. He predicted the position of Neptune, which was discovered in 1846, within 1 degree of the position he gave. Elected to the Academy of Sciences in 1846. They're like, yeah, that gets the win. And was the director of the Paris Observatory in 1854. So cool to see that he was actually alive for this discovery. You know, in Astro Databank at astro.com, it's really cool about giving some relationships to other people. And in this case, the chart for the discovery of Neptune. Events in life, gain social status, right? With that award, which is what the result of the discovery of Neptune that he predicted. Anyway, sometimes you'll just see lists and lists of charts and synastry charts and whatnot. Well, he's a Pisces sun, so for you modern astrologers who associate Neptune with Pisces, that's fun. Let's look at these two charts together. I'm going to reverse these. So this is now Urbain Le Verrier and the inner track. Let's just check his chart for a second. We've got a Mercury Chiron conjunction in the 10th. So just to do a little more map stuff, okay? Where do we expect to find those beings on the map? We're going to find that this place, his birthplace, is to the west or to the left of a Mercury at the midheaven line and to the right or to the east of a Venus at the midheaven line, which places Venus in the cadent house at the midheaven the 9th and Mercury in the angular house at the midheaven the 10th, okay? So let me just show that to you. So here we are in France. If I bring in the local space lines, I can very quickly find where his birthplace is because I don't know. And here we go. We have Mercury, Chiron, midheaven lines. He's to the right. They're in the 10th house. He's to the left, or he's to the left or the west of the Mercury Chiron midheaven lines, which places them angular 10th house. He's to the right or the east of the Venus midheaven line, which places Venus in the cadent house, the 9th house, okay? He is in this place west or left of the Saturn descendant line, so Saturn will be in the 7th, while Neptune will be in the 6th. And that place, closer to Neptune than to Saturn, right? So here's an interesting thing that connects me in my belief, which is the word I prefer to hypothesis for Neptune adventure here, is that we are going to find Neptune in the charts of these people who recorded Neptune. Whoa, it happens to be that Neptune is the planet that is closest to an angle for Urbain Le Verrier, who predicted where Neptune would be, and this was confirmed, right? So Neptune is 7 degrees away from the descendant. And here's an interesting thing we have to wrestle with. Saturn is actually less than 6 degrees away. Even though this Neptune line is so much closer to his birthplace, well, let's see what happens when I hit this button. Okay, so I just want you to keep your eye. I'm going to take these local space lines away because they get pretty strange and confusing, I guess, okay? But keep your eye here. These are actual places where Saturn was setting in the moment of Le Verrier's birth, okay? So Saturn was still visible. Saturn was up in the 7th house, except the sun was up, so we don't see Saturn, right? Bookmark. And these what are called in mundo lines, which were greatly preferred. I mean, actually, the only ones that Jim Lewis, who is kind of the modern developer of astrocartography maps, using, you know, the breakthrough at that time of personal computing. Jim Lewis insisted on using in mundo positions, which considered not only a planet's location in zodiacal degree, that's called longitude, but also how far that planet was from the ecliptic circle, and that's latitude. Let me just show you a quick example of this. I'm not going to go to like that time. I'll just show you like for right now. Actually, right now in February, Spain, because I've been working on Dali. Look at how far Venus is from the ecliptic. That's this yellow curve. It's the path of the sun. And for the most part, it's the plane of our solar system, but every planet has its own path, okay? So you see here, Uranus is not right on the plane, okay? I'll use the moon as an example, okay? Moon right now, she has her own path. Where the paths of moon and sun cross are the nodes. The sun is very close. Why? We're in eclipse season. This is days after a very significant annular solar eclipse, okay? So the moon, after crossing her node, has now moved into what's called northern latitude, north of the ecliptic plane, okay? So as the sun sets later today, where are you? There. I'll just move by hours. Here's the sun setting in Spain today. Oops. Right, starts getting dark, and what I'll show you here is that the moon, sorry, zoom out of control. The moon, we say, is where in the zodiac? We say the moon is here. What we're doing with all planets, all fixed stars, is we are perpendicularly projecting them to the ecliptic plane. Okay, so for Regulus, we don't have to go too far, right? But for Algenubi, we certainly do. So when we say Algenubi is in a longitude of 140 degrees, which is 20 degrees of tropical Leo, actually 21, we're literally drawing a line all the way down here and saying it lives at that place, right? So when we say the moon in this moment, or actually some hours from this moment, is at a longitude of 138 degrees. That's 18 degrees tropical Leo. We're saying the moon's here on the ecliptic. We draw all of the planets on the same circle, right? Well, in the northern hemisphere, like February, Spain, this arranges for the northern latitude moon to set after the degree of the zodiac that it projects to sets. Okay, so here's the degree that the moon projects to setting. And the moon's still visible for a while. So the degree setting, that would be a zodiacal line on our AstroMaps. Okay, so when I shift this to zodiacal, we're going to see where the projected degrees are setting. And in that case, you'll find that now Saturn is closer to the birthplace than Neptune is. But when we actually consider, so that's zodiacal, that's the degrees they project to the zodiac, right? If we consider in mundo, if we actually consider their latitude where they were actually setting in the moment of Leverrier's birth, where they were actually culminating in the case of a midheaven line, or anti-culminating in the case of a IC line, or rising in the case of a ascendant line. If we consider in mundo, we're considering where they were actually rising, reaching, resting, or rooting on Earth, okay? And in that consideration, the closest planet on an angle, or rising, reaching, resting, or rooting, for Leverrier, who predicted mathematically the location of Neptune, the closest planet is Neptune. Ta-da! Right? So, I mean, my belief feels confirmed. We're going to go further than this. Neptune was discovered in Berlin. In Berlin, Mercury would have been ninth house at the time, right? Because remember, Mercury's in the 10th house for Le Verrier, because if we are west of a line, angular, 10th house. If we were east of a line, cadent, ninth house, right? So Saturn would be in the 6th, Neptune, Mercury in the ninth, Lilith in the 3rd, right? So if we relocate Urbane to Berlin, same moment, different place. Cancer rising, Libra moon right at the bottom of the chart in the 4th. There's that Lilith in the 3rd, Mercury in the ninth, although very close to the midheaven, and it's a Pisces midheaven. I can't remember what else. Oh yeah, we looked at Saturn line, so Saturn in the 6th, right? Okay. So would we expect to find some synastry between Urbane and Neptune? I would say absolutely yes. Let's bring in the Neptune discovery chart. I mean, this changed his life, won him the award, validated his mathematics and theories and all that, right? So let's get into that Neptune discovery chart. Well, there's a lot to see. I said bookmark earlier. Let me say one more thing. The midheaven is where where the zodiac in the moment is reaching its highest height in time. In other words, for Urbain Le Verrier, in the moment of his birth, this 16th degree of Aquarius was culminating. It was halfway between the time that it rose and the time that it will set. That does not mean it's the highest part of the ecliptic. It's just the highest height that specific degree will get to for the day. So when the sun's at the midheaven, it's midday. It's halfway between sunrise, sunset. When Mercury's at the midheaven, it's mid-Mercury, halfway between Mercury's and Mercury set and Mercury's highest height. The highest point in the space of the ecliptic is too often ignored by astrology. It's always in the 10th sign of the chart. Aquarius is the 9th from Gemini, right? You see the ascendant and the midheaven are more like trine, okay? It's a very important place. It's a culminating place. I think I should show you this in the stellarium as well, as long as we're speaking about it. So I'm back to February, Spain. I gotta shift that. So look, right now in February, Spain, the moon happens to be culminating. Let's let's honor that synchronicity. I'll do this and we'll go now. And I don't have to go to February's to show you that on a map, the moon MC line, moon culminating, is February's, okay? And Uranus here is setting, okay? I mean, if I go to zodiacal, they both get a little further. But so we're going to now expect to see, and that was a pretty cool Neptunian synchronicity. Here's the moon culminating, and here's Uranus setting, okay? Anyway, so here's the moon culminating, right? And the degree that moon projects to is like down here. So let me go to something that's more on the ecliptic, like this star, which is very difficult to see because it's so dim, but an amazingly ecliptic star. It's right on the ecliptic, Oscillus Australis, the alpha or brightest star, but not bright at all, of the Crab constellation. And it's about 15 degrees tropical Leo in our day and age. Actually, no, 19 degrees Leo. No, 9 degrees tropical Leo in our day and age. I thought it was further along. 9 Leo, okay. Well, so this is, in this moment, this is halfway between the time that star rose and will set. That's culminating. And in the northern hemisphere, like in February, Spain, like in France, like in Germany, that's always the direction due south, okay? But it's not the highest part of the curve. Actually, what I have to do is I have to square myself up to the ascendant, descendant, which contrary to popular opinion are very rarely due east and due west. And then I get to the highest part of the ecliptic, which is up here. And it's a point that is square to the ascendant and descendant axis. So why am I going into all this? Well, this is a very important thing for Le Verrier. The sun was at that highest point in space. Okay, not the planet closest to the midheaven. That's kind of equally shared by Venus, who's 12 degrees away, and Mercury, who's a little less than 11 degrees away. I see Chiron's closer, yeah. But I want to speak to the ones that we can see first. And they're both morning stars and visible at the time of Le Verrier's birth, which for me is very important. But anyway, the sun is at the top, and the sun is Pisces. And of course, modern astrologers associate Pisces with Neptune. And notice that this is an interesting thing. The sun is square Neptune. I mean, it's loose, it's separating. But also, if you look at the Neptune-Saturn midpoint, okay, which is what? 26 plus 11 is 37, divided by 2 is 18 and a half. Now the sun's at 20, right? The descendant's 18 and a half, okay? So Le Verrier's horizon is the Saturn-Neptune midpoint. And I was on this whole rap earlier about Saturn boundaries and Neptune boundarylessness, and math quantity Saturn and math quality Neptune. And here they are together at his descendant, right? Where you're staring that thing in the face, coming to terms, right? And he literally brought new structures, Neptune or Saturn, through like boundaryless explorations, mathematically, I could say, Neptune. Like it's really beautiful. And the sun's on the square to their midpoint. And we can see their midpoint actually. I have another software, Kepler software, which would let me map their midpoint. This one does not, but you know, we could calculate the zodiacal midpoint of those two planets, and you can visibly see it. The zodiacal midpoint of those two planets is basically this birthplace. So that's a really significant happening in an astrolocational image that's a little more difficult to see on like a standard astrocartography map, right? Okay, as long as we're pushing buttons, let's look at, these are local space lines. So this is if I held Le Verrier up to Saturn when he was born. Okay, Saturn's here in the west at the descendant. Sagittarius sets significantly south of west, especially this far from the equator. It's 49 degrees north of the equator, right? I mean, this is significantly south of the direction due west, which is why the descendant is closer to the midheaven, which is due south, than the ascendant. Gemini rises significantly north of east, and so much more fourth quadrant arc than third quadrant arc. Hopefully that helps you land something about quadrant house systems. Okay, anyway, so if I held this newborn child up to the sun, you know, I'd be directing him somewhere, east of south, Mercury closer to south, but east of south, Venus west of south, Saturn south of west, Neptune also south of west. And so where are those lines going? They're going towards Germany. And check this out. Oh my gosh, right? Vindicated. The Mars Neptune midpoint, and it's very close to the Neptune. This is called a local space line. Only 48 miles from Berlin to that line. Like actually less than 40 miles if I draw a perpendicular line. That's insane, right? So literally, if I held this man, if I had a time machine, and if I could see Neptune underground, right, which I can't, if I could feel that, and I held this baby up to Neptune, I would literally be pointing him towards Berlin. Now also, you know, what's the dot on Berlin versus what is this place? So the Berlin Observatory. Let's have a look. Is it north of Berlin? It looks like it's right in Berlin. No, it's closer. Astonishingly stops mid-sentence. So it kind of seems just right in Berlin. I was wondering if it was up here, right where that line was moving. I had a little theory. No, so we're going north of there, but we're damn close. And look, it's like kind of Neptune, Mars midpoint, right? Well, Mars is breakthroughs, pioneering, new, right? And so we'll see in the nativity, Sagittarius, exploring, adventuring, seeking, Neptune, Mars, and Saturn all in that sign, which is also the sign of his descendant. And it's like, right between these two, if I'm facing that direction of where those planets actually were in the west, near the descendant at the time of Leverrier's birth, I'm literally facing the place where Neptune was discovered. AstroMaps are so cool, and astrology is like shocking, right? Okay, so here's his birth chart, and now the discovery of Neptune on the outside. Jupiter, right, during the discovery of Neptune, was transiting Leverrier's ascendant. And then he wins this award, right? So let's see, when transiting Jupiter crosses his first house cusp. Thanks to Astro Gold for making that easy for me. It's a Moon-Jupiter conjunction at his ascendant in 2024. Right, my bad. So how would I do that? Let's go like this, 2, and then... Am I in somehow 1811? I see. Hold on a second. Let's just edit that to 1846. Tripping. Oh, so this is April of 1846, and Jupiter was still back in Taurus. So this is interesting, right? As long as we're there. Leverrier has a Jupiter return in the sign of Taurus, in the 12th sign, in the 12th house of his chart, right? So that is like expansion of the hidden things for one, but it's in the earth, the body. Like he literally expanded our gnosis and knowledge and higher view of the bodies of the solar system. And it's an invisible body, Neptune, right? So you could say that I'm on a limb of the astro tree when I say that. I don't think so. Anyway, here's the Jupiter return, and interestingly, it was a Moon-Jupiter conjunction during the Jupiter return, which was in May of 46, some months before the discovery in September. And the discovery in September featured Jupiter kind of on the door of his ascendant. Oh, yeah, Jupiter had recently stationed direct. I can see just the position of, oh no, where was the sun at the time? In Libra. Jupiter is actually about to station retrograde. So let me see where Jupiter stations. The outer planet station when the sun is on the awakening or opening trine of the cycle, right? So here's sun in Libra, trining Jupiter and Gemini, and there, so Jupiter actually stationed retrograde before crossing the ascendant. And it's not going to go direct until the sun's in Aquarius. I can show you that time. Jupiter stations with the sun in Aquarius, close to the midheaven. And so Jupiter's not going to cross the ascendant until like 87. So he already won the award. Neptune was well discovered. I was expecting maybe to see Jupiter crossing just as he was given this award. Then it's a question of orbs and such. But either way, we see Jupiter very close to the ascendant. We see that in that year he had Jupiter return. This is Jupiter squaring his Pluto. Jupiter opposite the natal Neptune, right? So amazing. And I mentioned earlier I would expect to see some Jupiter. I should have said I would expect to see some Mars because this was a breakthrough. And so check out how Mars at the time was transiting Leverrier's north node. How old was he at the time? He's 35, okay? He's in a 12th house annual profection. And that's Taurus, ruled by Venus, who lives in his ninth of discovery and adventure. And she's in Aquarius, science, right? And Jupiter lives in that house, right? So there's Jupiter and Venus themes. I kind of feel like calculating. This is certainly a whole sign square, but it's a square of 90 plus 22 degrees, which is 112 degrees, right? And what's 360 over 112? 3.21. What's that times 5? 16. So his Venus and Jupiter are on a 16th harmonic. And I know I'm getting strange here, but I kind of keep David Cochran's the first 32 harmonics at hand because I'm really loving exploring harmonic astrology, vibrational astrology, as David calls it. The 16th harmonics are hard aspects. Oh, right, because it's an 8th harmonic or right, 4th harmonic family that motivate a stressor person. The 16th harmonic aspects are motivating and challenging. They indicate the person's inner motivation, which may not be conspicuous from casually observing the person on a more superficial level. I don't know how I can put that into the synchronicity of being in a Venus time lady year, 12th house year with Jupiter in the 12th into context for the discovery of Neptune. Perhaps some of you can. I can certainly put this Jupiter-Saturn quincunx in context because we're talking about invisible things, right? Of expanding the unknown and the structures of relationship and whatnot. I wonder if anybody told him he was crazy. Anyway, so let's look. Astro Gold will help me cheat, and we can look at his profections for September of 1846. Well, here we go. He's in the 12th year, the 12th house, and September 24th is a Mars month of a Venus year. Okay. So Mars is in Virgo, which is the 5th of the 12th Taurus. It's in his 4th. It's at his north node. And where is transiting Venus at the time? Also in Virgo. And squaring his Neptune. Amazing. I'm going to look also at zodiacal releasing, and I know, some of you watching, probably these are like newer techniques, newer terms. He's in a peak period of his life, trajectory and career path. That life trajectory, I think, comes from Chris Brennan, maybe from his teachers, but I learned about zodiacal releasing from Chris. It's an ancient Hellenistic technique only mentioned by one author, Vedius Valens, and it's trippy. This asterisk in Astro Gold marks a period and a significant period in peak periods called the loosing of the bonds. It'd be very interesting to see what happened in Verrier's life at that time. We saw that he was studying celestial mechanics from before that. I remember reading 1836 maybe. But here's the discovery of Neptune, right? It's actually in 46. He had a peak period in 1845. I would imagine that the calculations were done at this time that were used to discover Neptune, but I don't know. So September 24th, 1846 is here. Sagittarius where his Neptune lives, but that's a bit of a stretch. Well, Aquarius where his Venus and Mercury live. Scorpio where his natal, well, he was in his Scorpio profection. Anyway, I'm going to just kind of go into space with that one, but on my own time, I might be studying that some. All right, well, let's play secondary progressions for him. at that time. Yeah, that's fine. Sun's in Aries, trining Saturn. Anything? Oh, there we go. So the progressed Mars conjoining progressed Neptune. Now, I'll usually give, especially Mars moves so slowly. For me, that's actually out of orb. This might ask me to reconsider that some. But for me, that's out of orb. We do have progressed Moon coming into a third quarter alignment with the Sun. That would happen that year. Some of you maybe are seeing things that I'm missing, but I'm not seeing too much on this chart. We do have Jupiter in Gemini, but look, you could say, oh, that happened recently. Not in a secondary progress chart, not in any way. This shift, however, of Mercury into Taurus may be more interesting. That would have been more recent. But I think, well, so yeah, the stronger aspect would be Venus squaring Neptune, but it's still not strong. So I'm not seeing anything in there that's gonna excite me. Should have stuck with the map discoveries. Okay, so let's do one more time. Let's look at some of the synastry between Neptune and this one that predicted where Neptune would be. I mean, the sun is conjoined the moon. It's just classic synastry of like marriage, by the way. Saturn conjoined Neptune at the time of Neptune's discovery. Amazing. I've seen that before, but forgot. That's amazing. It's squaring his Jupiter. It's at his Mercury, right? I mean, there's just so much here. Okay, let's look at one other cat. Sadly, the actual discoverer in Germany, who is Jerome Lalande, I believe. No, that saw in 1795. Oh, here we go. Gottfried. No, Johann Gottfried Gale, I guess. He's German. I'm just like embarrassing myself. It wrote in rating of C. Original source not known. Right? That's rough. Like how do you work with that? That doesn't mean we won't see planetary synastry. We just need to be careful of his angles and therefore also of his like astrocartography. But we have a decent time for Neptune, so maybe Neptune's astrocartography is going to point here to Radis, Germany. So let's see. From Berlin, not far away, down to the southwest, in the general direction of Stuttgart. Okay, so I want to see if that's highlighted in the Neptune local space chart. So let's go over here and we'll go now. Thank you, Urbane. We'll go to the Discovery of Neptune chart. And Stuttgart's not showing up, huh? Oh, I need more cities. So yeah, that's just challenging. Frankly, I'd have to go to a different software. Maybe let's show you how you can do this for free. So let's go to astro.com and we will go to free horoscopes and Astro click local space. Astro.com is recently added. Thank you. And we are going to add a person and it's going to be Neptune Discovery. And this was what, the 24th of September, 1846 at 12 a.m. And we had 12 a.m. and 15 seconds. So 0, 0. I don't think I can, things don't change too much in 15 seconds, friends. So we want Berlin. Oops. Do I have to type in German? Really? What? That's interesting. So we're good. We should see. The horoscope can only be generated for people whose gender is known. Yo, you're gonna tell that to fucking Neptune, man? I mean, part of my language, but I would maybe consider changing your policies. Yikes. Neptune, female. Continue. Good gosh. That is not okay, friends. So maybe a letter to astro.com today. Really? Pardon my language, please. That's just shocking. Neptune can be shocking, amazingly, right? So, okay, Stuttgart, we saw, oh gosh, my geography. Just public embarrassments. So here we are out of Berlin. Here's Frankfurt. Here's Nuremberg. And okay. Anyway, it was right in that direction, right? Can we... I think, you know, this is really genius, this thing they created. I can relocate this to Radis, Germany. And then look back to Berlin and see that Saturn Neptune. Fuck. So that Saturn and Neptune were conjoined at the time of Neptune's discovery, right? That those lines are going this way from this place means, and just kind of mark this place, okay? I don't know. So I can draw like a line from Magdeburg to Leipzig, and it's just here. I don't know. Let me go back to the birthplace. There. Okay. So look, literally, this is amazing. At the time of Neptune's discovery, right? So they're literally pointing a telescope at Neptune. And by the way, they're pointing it not only at Neptune, right? They're pointing it at Saturn. Holy moly. Right. Oh, so my bad. Here's the Neptune discovery, right? So they're here in the southwest. South, midheaven, into the northern hemisphere of west. And this is very southwest already, a Capricorn descendant, okay? They're pointing the telescope literally to Saturn to find Neptune beyond. What? And what are they, where are they directing that telescope? From Berlin, but literally right towards the birthplace of the man who's got his hands on the telescope, probably controls. Astrology and maps are the most amazing things. Like, how is that even possible, friends? Oh my gosh. Let me take the local space lines away, and we can show that sun line, yikes, was right through this place. So now I'm going to go to astro.com. Just astro.com actually allows for amazing resolution on these maps, right? Let's go to... And I would love to be able to find on the map, because we're going to go look at a different map where I can't just type in the name so easily. I would love to be able to find Radis. Okay, right. So the way to do this is we're going to relocate this there. This reminds me, I owe Astrology Hub, where I'm teaching AstroMaps, like as a masterclass. I owe them an instructional video of how to find these things at astro.com. So that I think will get created today or tomorrow. And it's definitely not too late if you find this fascinating. And if you want to tune in for like a super low rate for the month to new moon and full moon forecasts and question and answer sessions with me and like daily happenings, I will put a link in the comments of this video or in the description on YouTube and in the comments of a way that you can join Astrology Hub's inner circle. They don't open enrollment often. It's open right now. I'm teaching right now. You're going to get the most beautiful, like, I mean, in the way that it looks and the animations and astronomically sound astrolocation masterclass that you have seen. Not afraid to say that. And the community there is just amazing. And they bring in great astrologers month after month. Lynn Bird will be the astrologer next month. Love her. Okay, so let's continue here. So this is the place we're looking for. It's very close to this body of water and a place I'm not going to try to pronounce. This is Gemin Brett. Okay, I think I can find that again. Berlin, it's close to Leipzig. Okay, cool. Because what I want to do now is we're going to go to a free horoscope, which is the Astro Travel, which is their astrocartography. We'd love to be able to do these on the same map, right? So where's Astro Click Travel? There we go. And Neptune Discovery, great. So what I want to do is zoom in a lot and not into the United States. Let's go birthplaces center. I'm wondering if the sun at the IC line is going through his birthplace, and it's not, right? Because the birthplace is here. Now I can add, I don't like what they call them, but these harmonious and disharmonious aspects, and nothing. Okay, so here are the couple things that we discovered today, and we could go on and on and on, okay? Amazingly, at the time of Neptune's discovery, lines from Neptune, like literally where the telescope was being pointed to find Neptune, was pointed also at Saturn and was pointed right to the birthplace of who was pointing it. I wonder if he knew. Other things that we found were that in Urbain Le Verrier's chart, the one who calculated Neptune, not only were there amazing transit things happening in regards to his Neptune and profections and other things at the time, but that Jupiter was at his ascendant, and in the maps, what we found for him is, first of all, he was born closest to a Neptune astrocartography line, which is the Neptune at the 7th, the place where we go to meet Neptune. Neptune-Saturn midpoint moves through his birthplace, and from his birthplace, the Mars-Neptune midpoint of the local space lines are going to Berlin, where the planet was discovered, and Mercury's in the 9th. Okay, the place of adventure, the vision quest, and all of this. So, one more. I'm out of time, but let's look at, let's just look quickly at Galileo, who was the first on record to have observed and recorded Neptune. Yikes. Whose Jupiter conjoined Saturn, which is the closest thing back then to a Saturn-Neptune conjunction, happens to be hovering about the proposed ascendant for the planet Neptune. Are you serious? All right, what else? So interesting, a lot of Pisces energy in the people that we've looked at today. So let's look at the maps for Galileo, and actually let's do for Neptune the maps that bring us to Galileo's birthplace here in Padua. Let me show you where it is by showing Galileo. And then I can just show you his local space. So this is where he was born, okay, in Pisa, in Italy. All right? Let's see if there's anything heading towards Berlin. This is a moon at the midheaven line. So the moon was in the 9th of Berlin. I mean, I'm a little less tied to Galileo linking to Neptune's discovery place than I am to Neptune's discovery place linking to Galileo. That kind of excites me a little bit more. Now, Galileo and Mars pointing to Rome, that's, or Vatican City, that's a little more interesting to me. Okay, so Neptune's discovery, and we see lines to Galileo's birthplace that look like Venus, right, in the node, and Mars was right at the IC for Galileo. I mean, maybe some of the agitation of the way that he was put on house arrest and all. So it's literally, though, like the Venus Mercury going to this place of the one who was first to, at least on record, observe and record, witness through the telescope of the planet Neptune, though, of course, at the time it was not known to be a planet. See you in space, friends.